Halie and I'm a first-year master's student in the Reading Education program at Vanderbilt, and currently I'm in a course on literacy development, and this week we read about how young children begin to learn to read, so I'm meeting with Dr. Ann Neely, a professor at Peabody College at Vanderbilt with the research focus in children's literature to gain more insight into this topic. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce Dr. Neely a little bit more. She's been at Vanderbilt for over 30 years and was a classroom teacher before that. She's an avid reader of children's literature and keeps up with all the new books to read and discuss with her children's literature classes. I don't know anyone more experienced or knowledgeable in this area, so I'm grateful for the chance to learn from the wonderful Dr. Neely today. Thank you, Dr. Neely, for agreeing to talk with me today.
Sure.
So we read chapter 3 of Dr. Molly Collins and Julie Schickendon's book, So Much More Than the ABCs, The Early Phases of Reading and Writing. And they discussed reading storybooks with preschoolers and gave some suggestions to consider of factors to consider when selecting books to read with young children. They talked about the book's complexity and potential interest to young children, the richness of its language, the values it conveys, and the extent to which diversity is represented, and the appropriateness of the illustrations and their size. Do you have any thoughts on these suggestions? Are there any that you would add that you think are more important than the others?
Well, I think these are great suggestions, and of course I like to discuss the illustrations the most. I think the book by Megan Dowd Lambert, Reading Picture Books with Children, is an excellent one to really consider that we're reading them not to children but with children, and to help the child get very involved in the book and in the illustrations, the format of the book, and so forth. I think that the adult allowing the child to really talk about the illustrations is really important.
That kind of answers my next question about what's the most important thing you consider when selecting books to read. But has this always been your main consideration, or has it changed over time?
I think it has changed over time, and I don't want to sell short the text. The text is very critical, but the text and the illustration working together are the things that I think I look for in evaluating books. Probably the best picture book to show what I'm talking about would be Owl Moon, The Caldecott Winter by Jane Yolen. And it does an exquisite job of marrying the text and the illustration, even where the text is embedded within the illustration is beautifully done.
So next year, most of our class is either going back into the classroom or going into the classroom for the first time as a teacher. So is there one piece of advice you would like to leave us all with when it comes to reading books with our students?
Absolutely. Read every day. Read one chapter from a chapter book, one picture book, and one poem. And then we will be very, very proud of you.
Thank you so much. This is really helpful.
Well,
So, as we heard from Dr. Neely, considering picture books as illustrations is especially important when selecting books because illustrations are a way of making reading more multimodal, and they provide an access point to reading for young children. It's when the text and illustration seamlessly work together that the reading experience is particularly enriched for children. I also loved the suggestion Dr. Neely left us with, to not only read with our students every day, but to read a chapter from a book, a picture book, and a poem. I think this will really expose our students to the wide variety of ways reading can look and sound, and hopefully this way students will be more likely to begin to identify with what reading looks like for them so that they're all able to begin fostering a love of reading.